The horizontal scaling strategy and how to scale fast. So if you've seen the vertical scaling strategy, you know that it's more of a stable way of scaling, but it's not the fastest way of scaling. The horizontal scaling is all about scaling fast and being able to find new opportunities of growth as well. And so if you have a given ad set, the way that I use the horizontal scaling is to duplicate that ad set and take the budget across. Now, in some cases, you might want to increase the budget, but generally you would take that budget, let's say you're on $50 a day, your ad set is being consistently good, make copies of that and also make slight tweaks on those as well. And I'll talk through that. The goal of this is really to be able to scale a lot faster, but also to maintain your winning ads health on the kind of winning ad set as well, de-risking any changes on your winning ad set and pushing your risk across to these duplicates of ad sets as well. Now, in terms of making copies of your winning ad set, you can make 2, 3, you could make 10, even 20. A lot of it depends on A, how much budget you've got, and B, how big your audiences are as well. So if your audiences are in the high millions, the tens of millions, then there's a good opportunity to scale sideways as long as the overall spend for that is not going to absolutely reach everyone at the same time. Because when that happens, the ad sets themselves will compete in the auction for an impression. It won't affect your cost as long as it's in the same account. But if there are two ad sets with identical audiences, there is a chance that the ads will compete as well. You can literally, 5x or more your spend in a day. So in the vertical scaling, we've seen that you can increment your budgets by 20%, and it takes time to go from 50, 100, 250, 300, etc. With this scaling strategy, you can go sideways and scale a lot faster as well. It works really well with manual bids. So often when I'm growing an ad set for an established account or a new account, I will use that kind of vertical scaling to get to a point where I'm confident, and then use horizontal scaling to move from auto bid to manual bid. So with a brand new audience and creative and product or whatever you're kind of working on, when you're starting out, you need data to be able to use manual bid confidently, regardless of what your CPA or CPL target is. But once you have that, horizontal scaling is a great way of introducing manual bid, but to also test different bid levels as well, which I'll talk through shortly as well. Again, with the horizontal scaling, be prepared to bring more creatives into play. So if you've been through the graduation framework, you will already know how to have your creatives queued up, ready to be used. Be prepared to use them in your horizontal scaling strategy, probably more so than your vertical, because when you're going horizontal, you are going to be reaching far more people in your audience than you were through the vertical strategy. And some ad sets may start to fail, not necessarily because they're just bad ad sets, but it could be that you're reaching different people within that target pot of audience that are not reacting well to your creative. So as you are scaling sideways, think about different angles, different concepts on your avatar, and try and reach people in different ways as well, testing formats and ideas, etc. Also, when you're scaling horizontally, it's a great way to test placements and devices as well. So quite often when I'm going sideways, that's the time that I'll test different placements out. And so, for example, if you're including Instagram and Facebook in your winning ad set, but you're seeing some really good performance on Instagram, if it's in a combined ad set, you're letting Facebook decide where that spend goes. Now, there's pros and cons of breaking that out, but when you are going horizontally, what I prefer to do is break out Facebook, break out Instagram into two separate ad sets, but keep the single ad set with the two Facebook and Instagram running as well at the same time, and see what kind of performances you get and control those budgets in the platforms that are working well for you, and maybe start to play around a lot more with the creative as well. So you might want to pull out Instagram because it's actually working well with the combined Facebook Instagram account with the ad set, and actually see if you can increase the budget specifically on Instagram and start moving your creative towards Instagram specific creative as well. Also, you might want to break out device, mobile versus desktop. So again, Facebook will apportion that spend where it sees fit. But if you're seeing differences in performance, you might want to control that budget, or maybe even take out a device completely as well. Keep an eye on the audience insights through delivery insights, avoiding too many overlaps. So as a best practice, when I'm looking across ad sets, I don't want my ad sets overlapping more than 30%. It's a rough benchmark. There is no general kind of proven right or wrong here. But if I'm seeing ad sets creeping close to that 30%, and we'll go through that in the delivery insights part of the training, then that's probably an indicator that either I want to consider pausing one of these ad sets, or maybe just kind of do more kind of creative testing and keep the ads very different to that single audience I'm going for as well. Again, keep an eye on those key metrics across your ad sets in this case as well, and making sure that they are performing, but also being able to cut early as well. So for example, if at the start of the day I've made 5, maybe even 10 duplicates of a winning ad set, then I want to know, based on the performance of the account, when I should be getting good results. So for example, if I know by 1 o'clock in the evening, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the CPA should be X across this ad set based on performance of the winning ad set, then if my duplicates are nowhere near that, I'm going to pause them. And I'll maybe come back tomorrow and restart them, but I don't want to make too many losses on this. So keep an eye on the duplicates as you're scaling them out. Do it quite early in the day, but be cognizant of the performance that you're getting from that, and being conscious about cutting those early as well. So you want to minimize your losses as much as possible. You can, for example, make 10 duplicates exactly the same if you want and make no changes whatsoever. So you're trying to spread your net quite wide. So going back to the example of oceans, boats, and hooks, with the horizontal scaling strategy, what you're doing is you have your ocean, you have your audience, so you're going after the fish that you think are more likely to be the fish that you're looking for. So if you imagine that analogy and you've got one boat, all of a sudden when you duplicate your ad set, you're putting exactly the same boats into that same fishing area. So you've got more chance of success, keeping in mind that using that boating analogy, if you are duplicating your ad sets and you're, in the analogy, duplicating the amount of boats you've got in that area, only one boat can fish for one particular fish at a given time, but you can throw multiple hooks into the ocean. So like this strategy, if you duplicate your winning ad set 10 times and make no changes whatsoever, it's still an opportunity to be able to spread your net wide and throw more hooks into the ocean and try and grab up more fish. With that kind of strategy, I would be playing around with the creative a lot more as well. And you know, certainly from my preference is also testing out different max bids, placements, etc., and that's something which we'll cover shortly. So I'm going to take you through an example here where I've taken an ad set, so an ad set which has been performing well, and made duplicates of it. So this is the ad set we're playing with. So this is a broad audience ad set. Broad audiences are where I know that the pixel has some really strong data, it's established, I've got numerous sales, and now I want to remove lookalikes and interests and demographic targeting and leave the targeting to the pixel. So this particular ad set that we've been using here has been using that kind of broad targeting. So the original ad set, which is this one here, had an auto bid targeting a really general demographic, and it's spending about $200 a day. I've made multiple copies of this ad set and I'm testing to see the performance as it goes. So as a benchmark over this period of time, which is roughly maybe 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, we've got an average of $31 CPA, which is good. The duplicate that I've made up here, I've increased the budget at the same time. So this is working at $7.20 per day, and the CPA hasn't been as good. And so I've been testing around to try and get that CPA down. There's another duplicate that I've made here with a different landing page. And this one, as you can see, actually has higher spend than our original, higher daily spend, which is incremented up, and it has a better CPA. So that's a real good indicator. The only change here has been a landing page. So the creatives are still the same, but we're serving different landing pages to those creatives. This one here, you can see, is a max bid of 90. So exactly the same targeting again, same creative, but we're using a max bid to test whether we can bring a good CPA in. The reason I've gone for 90 here is from my best practice when working with manual bid, if you go for 3 times your target, generally that's the best biting point. And actually as a test here, I've done max bid of 30, 50, 75 and 90 at the same time to test which ones are working. Now, as a bit of background for this particular ad set, I've started each off at $100 a day to see which ones are working best. And the reason why the 90 has incremented up to 1200 a day in spend is because that one's overall that has had the best performance. And so I've stopped the 75 and 50. It's spent enough, and I'm confident that that is not performing. I may revisit that with different creatives, but actually, right now, one of the key things that has actually happened is the max bid of 30, whilst it wasn't performing initially, and that's why the budget has stayed quite low, all of a sudden started to perform. And what it means is that Facebook has managed to find these people that are going to convert at $30 max bid, and is actually bringing back a really good CPA. Now, can I scale it? And that's something which I'll be testing over the coming days to see if I can get that spend higher. One of the key things about horizontal horizontal scaling is you don't just have to scale it once. So I have my original here, which I've now duplicated numerous times here, but then I've also found potentially other winning ad sets which I could maybe duplicate out again. So here I'm testing different versions of a landing page and also max bids. I haven't even yet looked at placements and device and things like that, so it's still an open book for me to play with around scaling. So there's still huge opportunities here to scale up. So if we go back and look at the data there, I've gone through, tested 30, 50, 75, and 90 in terms of my max bid, and I'm seeing some good performance coming out. Also, I've tested an average, so target cost versus lowest cost. The average has actually brought back no sales, and that's been dumped. And so really scaling sideways in the duplicates, what I prefer to do is change one variable at a time and measure it. So if I'm just changing max bid, that's all I'll change. Or if I'm adding Instagram, that's all I'll change. And then maybe I'll mix them up. So if it's an Instagram only ad set, then I'll maybe introduce max bid in. So you're incrementing one change at one given time and then seeing kind of one by one how that performance is doing and reacting based on that as well. And one of the key things to bear in mind is your original ad set becomes your insurance policy. And so with this one here, my original ad set is still working at the same budget level, and it's just there in the background. If it stops performing, I'll pause it and I'll leave it there to come back later. But at the moment, it's performing okay. But my winners are the ones where I'm carrying more risk and I'm scaling those up. And this gives me the opportunities to scale faster and harder. And in the kind of upcoming video, I'll show how I prefer to use vertical and horizontal to scale both consistently and aggressively at the same time.